we've got just a little bit of time for a couple of the listener questions that have come through, and I wanted to hit you with one of those. A land value tax. What are your thoughts on a land value tax?
Well, we sort of already have that in the form of rates. The higher the value of your land or your property generally, the more you're going to pay in rates. And I think the last thing that ratepayers want to do is see a new specific tax come along, presumably from the central government level as opposed to the local government there, and get them even more up in arms because there's a lot of pain out there already. And if we look, say, at Wellington specifically, where we've got the newspapers reporting on people's rates in Karori are going to go from $2,500 a couple of years ago to $11,000 in 5 or 6 years' time. And there's a lot of older people realising they're not going to be able to afford to stay in their property any longer. And I think this is going to be one of the dynamics in the housing market the next few years. Maybe a bit more cashing up, we used to call it. Now it's just forced selling out of the cities in New Zealand and maybe moving to the more affordable regions. As long as there's a hospital nearby, good access to health services, good transport for the grandkids visiting, that sort of thing. I think that's going to be a sort of an extra overlay in these markets. And I don't think anything specific like a land tax is going to come along. And also, I hope not, I guess, as a landowner.
Takes me to my next question, because I guess you can only sell up and move out if there's someone ready to come into the city and buy. And, you know, we're seeing immigration really move around. We're seeing, again, that dreaded brain drain phrase come up again. Are there specific policies that you think we need to be looking at to address that issue of brain drain of younger and able people heading offshore for better opportunities?
I'd say not really, because it's one of the phenomena of New Zealand society, our culture, that we're relatively small in New Zealand. We're exposed to the outside world and we go, look at all those big buildings over in Sydney. That was me back in the early 1980s. I've definitely got to get across there. I remember studying road maps and think, oh, look at that, with George Street and all this sort of thing. And so go overseas and have some experience. And I think it's always going to happen. And we've got a net loss of Kiwi citizens in the past year of about 44,000, which is about twice the average for the past 20 to 25 years. So it is relatively strong at the moment. I think some of that will dampen down in the very near future, but not disappear entirely. And a key driver is New Zealand's labour market versus Australia. They got a 4.1% unemployment rate. We're at 5.1%. People are going to move across there.
Heading to 5.3 if we believe the predictions.
Maybe we go up slightly higher. And then I'm reading the Irish Independent newspaper the other day about a young woman who's moved across into Western Australia, driving these big rigs across there, earning $55 an hour, and she plans working maybe 1 or 2 years and then shifting back to Ireland and be able to lay down a deposit on a house. We've always done that in New Zealand as well. So we can't really, I think, expect that the brain drain is necessarily going to be sort of capped of keeping the young people in New Zealand. What does concern me a bit is the newer development recently, the parents of those kids. They are starting to go as well. My neighbours have done it. 2 sons, both living and working on the Gold Coast in Australia, and 3 months ago they decided we're following them, and they just put their place on the market, gone within 4 weeks, essentially.
So what's the risk there, that you get people don't come home to family because the family has gone to them kind of thing, and you don't see that brain gain return?
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I say the Auckland population has continued to grow, because your family is near there, and so you stay there. It'll be a limit on how many you sell up in Auckland and go somewhere else for cheaper rates, for instance. And so, yeah, if your kids are overseas, well, your grandkids are going to be overseas. If you want to, have that interaction, then maybe you shift across as well. In the middle of your career, so it's a mid-career sort of 40s, early 50s sort of a cohort that's moving across there. We shouldn't forget that there are probably 2 or 3 billion people who, if you said to them, come in, would hop on the plane and come in tomorrow to New Zealand. So that's a sort of a skill swap, which has always been the case for New Zealand.
Yeah, we're drinking from the fire hose there, as they say.
Yep.
In terms of that younger generation that the oldies might be moving a bit closer to, we've got a question about what sort of long-term financial education we should be trying to give our young people, particularly at school or wherever. What are some takeaways there, you think?
I think it's a bit more than just you need to save for your retirement. Certainly, I think just increasing the awareness of, by saving through KiwiSaver, you can build up a deposit there, so that's one way to get into the housing market later on. But frankly, the idea of buying your house when you're at school, it's irrelevant. You're not thinking about it.
You're thinking about buying a V at the dairy, probably.
Exactly, that's right. It's a totally different mindset that you've got there. And retirement is just way down in the future. You're probably going to be run over by a bus before then, is what we always used to say back in my day anyway, in the 1970s. I think it's probably more important to focus where more and more schools have been doing the past 2 decades on the entrepreneurship, on setting up your own business. And there is an eagerness of young people out there because of the accessibility of developing your own apps, learn AI, get the AI to do all the coding for you. And my youngest son, first year at university, he's involved with a group, Rinter, developing an app looking at better matching of the tenants with the landlords, for instance. I'd have never thought of anything like that when I was first year varsity back in 1980. But more of the education of, have a go, set up a little startup, etc. That's what I would focus on, rather than just financial budgeting sort of stuff. I think it's got to go a little step beyond that.
Yeah, good advice. I guess because that's where we've seen the focus, haven't we? They've talked about more financial literacy, but it's actually like, well, what are you going to read now you're literate? What are you going to write?
Yeah. What are you going to do about it? And the world is filled with examples, including many people from New Zealand who started out with very, very little. And while we still have the people who then set up a factory and grew from there, or they got into the beverage distribution business and grew and made millions from there, just setting up an app, and it goes viral and everybody wants it, and all of a sudden there's $300 million there. It's moved a step beyond Sam Morgan setting up Trade Me and selling it for $700 million. For instance, it's beyond that into the whole app area and these other areas.
Now they're buying the papers back. There we go.
There we go.